Since their inception, video games have always drawn people closer together and helped develop communities around each other. For my research, I primarily researched whether or not these were legitimate communities. My research led me to define a community as a group of people who share a common history, language, and just general things about them, kind of like a natural culture that would form around them. Things like this could be displayed with things like fan art, or as aforementioned, a similar history. I primarily focused on MMORPGs, as these are the games that dictate most people to have to work together in large communities. And the games that I focused on the most were World of Warcraft and Second Life. Now, before I continue further, there are a few terms that you should know that I may be using throughout the rest of this presentation. Some of these include things such as collective intelligence, which is the idea that a bunch of people come together to work for the same purpose and they give each of their ideas to the whole to help further the group. Then MMORPG, which would stand for a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. And it's a specific video game genre where communities are really prominent. Now, within World of Warcraft and many MMORPGs, you have things called guilds, which are a group of players who communicate amongst each other to accomplish a given task or to enjoy each other's company while playing the game. There's also a concept of telepresence, and this is the experience of presence in an environment by means of a communication medium, such as video games. Now, an example of how these games would work in-game is, for example, within a guild. You would go on a quest or a mission, and during this mission it would be really tough to do by yourself. So, you would call in a bunch of friends who you've met throughout playing the game, and then you would all go in to complete this one given task within the game to help progress everyone that's a part of the guild or a part of the tribe. Now, this can transcend, these connections that is, can transcend outside of the game. Examples of this are what I found on daily.com. Back in 2015, there was a man whose son had just died in war, and before his son had went off, he was a prominent World of Warcraft player. Now, after his son's death, the father went online to try and find out how to play this game so he could maybe grow a connection to his son. Whenever he went online, the people of the World of Warcraft community as a whole came around him and supported him and just helped him grow in the game and help him grow a connection with his now deceased son. This is an example of how the community is legitimized, as they're there to help build each other up. Now, you may be wondering, why do people play these games in the first place? An obvious reason is because they enjoy the game. But I think the less obvious and more prominent reason for them playing this is for the sense of community that they get when they join the game. When they get in with these fellow players that they feel like they can relate to. Oftentimes, people in communities don't just share one thing in common. They also share many things outside, like they like the same type of music, or the same type of shows, or maybe the same type of books. This often proves true also when you're playing an MMORPG. You find people of the same interests around you. Now, with this said, it can also be a bad thing, because potentially they could be blocking out views they don't agree with, which is obviously a bad thing, as that hinders compromise later on. Now, a problem that we do see within communities and video games is a problem of addiction. As found in my research, this addiction only occurs in 5% of players, much like in the larger population of humans, but it is a real issue that must be addressed and thought about. The addiction can be to the community or to the game, and oftentimes addiction is also confused with just prolonged play. Prolonged play is not necessarily addiction. Addiction is only something that occurs within the brain, is a brain stimulus that is easily seen when the brain is scanned. Now, an example on the other side of MMORPGs that is not out of the World of Warcraft community would be what Fromming did whenever he played Second Life. When Fromming went into Second Life, he was trying to get to know the game and investigate the community. What he found was that in Second Life, where you can have your own child because people will give them to you to stimulate a birth, people were so into their character and into their roles of the game that they were not even willing to admit that it was a game. They were convinced that this was real life to a degree. And this again poses a problem with these communities. Now, to further the history aspect of these communities, the example I'm going to use is that of Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating, of course, percentage of survival.
Oh, that's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, chums,
ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
This is a World of Warcraft example where a player in a guild went away for a while and missed the instructions for what was about to happen. So when he comes back, he went rushing into the battle without any instruction, and because of it, him and his guild were destroyed. This is a further example of how important these communities are to the game. This shows that they must cooperate with each other to achieve a goal. Overall, what my research displayed to me was that these were legitimate communities. These groups of people were just as legitimate of a community as, say, the community around you. They're a group of people that will come around you when you're down and help you out. They're a group of people who help you progress so that everyone can progress, so that everyone can learn. For the most part, they're there to build you up and not bring you down. With that said, there are some bad communities. And it's for that reason that my research also showed me that what must now be studied and the question that must now be asked are, what are the effects of these communities? How much is addiction happening? How awful is the addiction? How many problems are they causing? And other questions of this likeness. This topic, as well as many others, must be looked at and then weighed upon to see how important they are and whether anything has to be done to change these games to prevent these problems. And this is important so that we can prevent anyone from being hurt, feeling alone, or anything like that. So that we can prevent negative effects from gaming that are potential.